Hi there, I'm Stefan Kesting and I operate beginningbjj.com and grapplearts.com. Before we get started today, I just have to thank four people, my martial arts instructors and the people who've had the biggest influence on my grappling as well. There would be Professor Marcus Suarez, Coach Eric Paulson, Sifu Philip Jelena, and Guru Dan Inosanto. I also want to thank my friend Don Whitefield from West Coast BJJ for coming out and giving us a hand today. In this video, we're going to take a look at the underlying structure, the architecture of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We're going to take a look at the big picture and figure out where things like guard passes, guard sweeps, pin escapes, even arm locks, leg locks, and chokes fit in. Once you have the big picture, it's a lot easier to remember the specific techniques that you've learned in class, and it's also easier to figure out what new techniques you need to learn in order to round out your game. Just to show you a little bit about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about boxing. In boxing, basically, you have one stance. I mean, you're here. You can argue that southpaw would be a variation. Close in, you'd be here. But basically, it's a variation of this. And in boxing, you've got 6 punches, more or less. If you watch a high-level boxing match, you will see the jab, you'll see the cross, you'll see the hook, you'll see the uppercut, you'll see the body hook, maybe you'll see the overhand. And that's pretty much it. That's 90 to 95% of techniques that you're going to see in a professional boxing match. When you start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, on the other hand, you quickly realize that there's a lot more than just one stance, and there's a lot more than just 5 or 6 attacks. And the right attack to use, the right technique to use, changes as you go from one position to another. Also consider this. In boxing, say I'm ambidextrous, and I can fight left side forward, right side forward. If I want to change stances, there, I just step forwards or backwards. In Jiu-Jitsu, say I'm trapped in your guard, and you've got your guard closed, and I want to get to be mounted on you, that's a lot of difficult and technical steps I need to follow to move from one position to the other. So moving from position to position is much more of a battle than it is in boxing. There's an upside to all this complexity, though, and this is what a lot of people don't realize. Once you learn the secret language, once you learn the positions and figure this all out, which is what I'm going to try and show you today, this is a huge advantage if you're ever grappling with somebody who doesn't understand it. To them, it's just this big confusing mess of bodies, whereas you'll have a plan, something that'll take you step by step by step to the next step, to the next step, to the next step, with an end in mind. And this is a huge advantage to you if you learn this material that we're going to do today. So let's start talking about how to solve this complexity. Different people slice the pie up different ways. I like to divide Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into 6 major positions. From best for you to neutral, it would be rear mount, mount, knee mount, side mount, being on top of your opponent when he's turtled, and being in his guard. That's from best to neutral because the guard is more or less a neutral position. The flip side of that is from neutral to worst, it's I have you in my guard, we're neutral. You're on top of me and I'm turtled, it's just gotten a bit worse. You have me pinned in side mount, worse yet, knee mount, a full mount, and rear mount. Now I'm really in trouble. So that's the hierarchy of positions, from best to neutral and from neutral to worst. Now the focus of what we're doing today is position, the positional game of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not so much focusing on the submissions. Now you might say to yourself, that sucks. The reason I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because of all these cool submissions. Well, trust me, it's hard to apply submissions. It's way harder to apply submissions if you're in a bad position. If you're in a good position, your submissions will be 10 times more effective. So stick with me on this, and I think you'll find that the submissions work. I'm not going to leave you completely hanging, though. For each of the positions, I will show you briefly the major submissions, the most effective submissions, just so you've seen them for your own reference. And also, if you look at some of the additional material I'm including in this package, you'll find that many of the submissions we're talking about will be explained in there. So as an example of how these 6 positions might fit together, and it's only an example, We'll start here. Let's say I find myself in Don's guard. Let's say I begin passing his guard here, and he rolls out to turtle. And I spin, and I'm controlling him here. We fight, and I end up rolling him to side mount. From here, I can do many things. What I might do, it's a good option, is pop up to knee mount, and from here, come into mount. He rolls, or I make him roll, and we stabilize rear mount, and we end up here, or face down. Now, not every flow is going to look like that. You might skip a step. You might go directly from mount back to side mount, and from side mount directly to rear mount. It's impossible to say exactly what you're going to do, but this sort of shows you the overall goal. And also, at any point there, I can submit him. He might also be able to submit me. So those are the things that can change. I just wanted to give you an overall picture. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at each of the 6 positions in more detail.